Jesus, you're my all in all. Good evening and welcome to the spaces this evening. We're doing this simultaneously on Facebook and then on Twitter. My name is Chima Christian, and today is, I think, Friday, March 10. It's 7 p.m. local time. And first, let me start by thanking you for taking out the time to join the space and the Facebook Live this evening. Second is to also thank some of you who have sent me messages of encouragement over the past few days. I deeply appreciate all of those. I couldn't respond to all of them. I couldn't read all of them as yet because they were quite overwhelming for me. But I deeply appreciate, and I hope that God will give me the grace to, in the fullness of time, find the time to respond individually to all of those. Let me also apologize to people who will be hoping to hear from me today about the 2023 elections, especially as to regards the next steps. That I will discuss tomorrow by the mercies of God. I have accepted invitations from 2 groups tomorrow, basically on Twitter, to discuss 2023, what happened, how did it happen, and where we should go from there. So those discussions will be held tomorrow. But there is an even more important discussion in my mind that Nigerians should be having. While it is understandable that people are still mourning the outcome of the 2023 general elections, it's important that we put our emotions behind us now and look forward and strategically, especially as it regards to Nigeria post the election, even while the election litigation continues to carry on in courts. So today I'm interested in discussing Nigeria's 2023 census, and I titled it Little Details Matter: What Nigerians Should Know About 2023 Census. I have made a little note here, so if you permit me, let me give you the outline of what my interest this evening would be. And I will entertain questions, so if you have questions during the course of the presentations, please type them as a chat. And then on Twitter, I will also perhaps open up the room for people to make contributions and ask questions on Twitter. For Facebook, I don't know what nature it will take, but we'll see. We'll try to make this as interactive as possible. 1. Census. Why does it matter? 2. The people organizing this census. What is the organizational capacity like? The people that are going to organize the census. What is the system and the process like? What is the system and the process like? Then what are the individuals around the census, and what is their role in all of this? Then how frequent? And those will be my interactions. So let's start with census, because for those who don't know already, Nigeria will, shortly after the elections, go into a national census exercise. This particular census exercise of 2023 is coming 17 years after the last national census of 2006, and it is scheduled to be held between March 29th and April 2nd of 2023. That is 19 days from now. The census will begin. The exercise is expected to cover the entire territorial space of Nigeria. And as expected, you would expect the National Population Commission, that is the organization that is saddled by law to conduct the 2023 exercise, is waxing lyrical about its capacity to conduct the exercise. On its website, the organization has claimed that the 2023 census, I read from them, will be Nigeria's first digital census and will change how the census is being conducted in Nigeria. Now, they support their claims with a series of activities, pre-census activities, including several public relations engagements preparatory to the census proper. And already the commission is telling us what they've done, what they've been doing, and all of those things. So it is now time, in my view, to look into the general preparedness for the census and see how Nigeria has prepared for the census. I'm working on an article on this, but there is an article that was published by on TC Africa, and I find the article instructive. I believe that I've tweeted the article on my Twitter page. I will, after this thing, tweet it on my or maybe I will send it as a comment on my what is it called now, on my Facebook page, right? So the article is arguing about, not arguing per se, because they didn't take a stand as to the much I've read, but they were just trying to give us a background. The article is called Nigeria's 2022 census is overdue, but preparations is in doubt. And so they started by asking, what is census and why is census important to you? So according to them, I'm going to be doing their data, and this article is not authored by me. It is authored by it was published on The Conversation Africa, TC Africa, and it was published by J.O. Adetunji, who is the editor of The Conversation UK, right? So the credits should go to the author. The census, according to them, is the process of collecting 1, compiling 2, evaluating 3, analyzing 4, publishing and disseminating demographic characteristics of a country at a specific time or specified time. So it means the processes around telling us there are 2 million Nigerians, there are 3 million Nigerians, there are 200 million Nigerians, and out of these, this and this number live in the north, this and this number live in the south, and all of those things. So if census is properly done, it should provide us the data to plan our cities, plan transportation system, and in Nigeria, some form of our resource sharing formula is predicated on census population and figures around that. And so historically, Nigeria has always had a contested census. Historically, so if you're going to go by historical precedents, it is more than likely that the outcome of the census that will be conducted in a few days' time will not be accepted to Nigerians. So because that's history, I'm just relying on history for now, and I'll go into deeper levels of analysis. But if you're going to use historical perspective, Nigeria has always had a contested census. There was census between 1962 and 1963. Results were not acceptable, generally. There was also the 1973 census, same thing. And then there were, 1973. Then the last census of 2006 was also met the same rejection. In fact, the Lagos state government rejected 2006 census and commissioned its independent census because they rejected the census, they didn't agree with the numbers. And then even as of today, whether in official or unofficial communication, you hear people saying, oh, are you sure we're even up to 200 million people? Oh, are you sure we're even up to the numbers we are claiming? Oh, are you sure that you were this? So this is just to point that Nigerians don't believe in the data that has been generated or that was generated in the previous census exercise. So using that analysis, it is more than likely that the outcome of this census exercise will, according to history, be contested and not be generally accepted. And this, when you look at an unacceptable, or at least a seemingly, not a seemingly, a contested electoral outcome, and then less than 30 days after that, you have a contested census outcome. Now, what does that portend for Nigeria? So then that's number one. Then two, if you're going to ask questions, because National Population Commission is claiming that they are prepared for the census exercise. And so let us even ask questions around their organizational capacity. What is the organizational capacity of National Population Commission? Their officers and commissioners, how were they recruited? Are these competent statisticians or competent people who are competent and knowledgeable around the subject area? Or are these, appointments made to satiate the appetite of political hangers-on? The people who appointed these people, were they appointed on merit? Were they appointed because they knew somebody who knew somebody? What is the process of appointing commissioners in the NPC like? What is the process of recruiting in the IPC like? So those are some of the questions that, if you look at the organizational capacity, to my mind, I have looked at the numbers, and the numbers suggest to me that the National Population Commission does not have the organizational capacity to conduct a credible census exercise. Already, there are going to be 786,000 functionaries that has been recruited, 786,000 to be deployed, individuals, human beings, to be deployed for this exercise. Out of that, you have the people they call the enumerators, they have the supervisors, they have the data quality assistants, they have the field coordinators, they have the data quality and data quality managers, they have the training center administrators, and they have LGA level facilitators, and a whole lot of this. So 786,000, almost near the number that INEC deployed. So what is the quality of these individuals? Who populated that list of 786,000 individuals? Who recruited them? What was the training like? Even before you recruited them, because a whole lot of them are ad hoc staff. Of course, you can't have these people in the institution paying them month in, month out. Especially that I mentioned to you that in the last 17 years, the organization has not done a major national exercise. So it is fair to assume that because of lack of use, that some of the individuals within that organizations have atrophied, that they have what you call law of diminishing return, that they have rusted due to, you know what happens in a standard government or public institution, where you are recruited, you come in firing, and then after 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, nothing happening, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, the people begin to lose their cutting edge. So even if you hired first-class materials into that institution, by the time you allow that institution to be near dormant for this number of years, it is expected that those people would have atrophied or would have not been as sharp as they would be. And then, when those people are also not recruited in a seemingly transparent manner, when politicians have oversized influence or overbearing influence as to how those people are recruited, then you can begin to have problems as regards organizational capacity and putting round pegs in round holes. Part of the things that the 2023 general elections in Nigeria revealed is the inefficiencies within the system. And I've had people who are saying, you need to be a logistics person, you need to be a project management person before we give you INEC, right? So today, even the logistics, the sheer logistics of deploying on a daily basis, 786,000 people, to be covering the length and breadth of Nigeria, to be enumerating people, take away the insecurity, take away the lack of infrastructure, because there are some communities that are hard to reach. There are some communities you have to use canoe, you have to use Okada, you have to use canoe, keke napep. You know, those are, leave the logistical, leave the infrastructural issues around that. Also leave the insecurity. The making sure that the people show up at their workplace on time. Look at what happened in the elections. There are some polling units that reported late arrival of materials, even on the election morning, as voters were looking for their voting centers. Also, INEC officials were looking for their places of assignment. So you could also talk about having such logistical challenges when it comes to the census exercise, and such things could put a hard dent on the figures that will be released afterwards. So if you talk about organizational capacity, and you could break them down to one, who are the people within the organization before this exercise, and how were they recruited? That's lump it up in one place. Then the second, who are the ad hoc staff recruited for this exercise? Also lump that up in one space. And then ask your question, what is the training that we're giving to these individuals? Also lump it up in one space. If you ask the NPC, they will say, oh, we have trained them because there is budget for their trainings, there's budget for the trainers. But I am not sure that these people have sufficient level of training to carry out the exercise that they are supposed to carry out. So let me leave that at the organizational capacity. Then the second thing I want us to introspect on is what we call systems and processes. There will be PDAs. Somebody who is knowledgeable about ICT should tell me what PDAs mean. But they are portable devices like your tablets, but something like the beavers, right? These are Android devices, not specifically phones, but they have such capacities. They can take in GPS data, they can take in pictures, they can also be programmed to take in biometrics. So something like the beavers. So the PDAs that will be used by these people have been acquired, and they were supplied by Xenox Technology. I think it was Leo Stan Eke who supplied those things. Already the commission is claiming that the devices have geospatial whatever, that it has geomapping. They are claiming wonderful things about the features of these devices. And like the beavers, it is important to subject these systems to integrity tests and audits. We are not doubting what the NPC is saying about these systems, because if you read what they said on their website, like I read to you earlier, they are saying that this particular census is data-based, is technology-based, and therefore that it will revitalize or even transform the face of census in Nigeria. And what are they predicating those things on? On a device. And then I say to you that this device has not been tested. If you say that it has geospatial systems, let us test it. If you say that it cannot be rigged, let us test it. Because the issue with our census figures is that oftentimes you hear people say, I have lived in some parts of Nigeria. I don't think this particular part of Nigeria is as populated as they claim. And then why is the population here not as much as I think it should be? Right? So there are doubts as to the accuracy of the figure. And there are insinuations that the people might have brought out their cattle to be counted. These things are in the realm of speculations, and we've heard that. But what all those speculations point to is that people don't have confidence in the numbers that were bandied. So if we're going to have confidence in the numbers that will come out of this exercise, it is important that we know that the systems, the processes, the server, all of them that will be deployed are subjected to integrity tests, so that we can be sure that the systems cannot count twice, that the system cannot be technically made to inflate numbers or deflate numbers, that the system will not be saying, oh, they did not give us, oh, thank you, Christian. Christian has said that PDA is personal digital assistant. Thank you. So the personal digital assistants that will be deployed, there should be some form of integrity test around them to even understand how they function, what are the security features, and then even beyond understanding the systems, you talk about the processes. It's in the processes that you talk about human interaction with the systems, because designing a system is one thing, the human interaction part of the system. And I spoke to, before having this conversation, I made efforts to speak to a professor, I think in a university in Michigan, who is very knowledgeable about human interaction with systems. I have had a one-off conversation with her, but she told me that she's traveling and is unable to educate me on the questions I had asked her, because her work is solely when you design a system. She's been doing this all across the world. That anywhere a technology is to be deployed, her work is to advise governments, advise institutions on the human interaction with those systems, and eliminate the friction between the human side of the equation and the technical side of the equation. Go back to the elections that happened a few days ago. You saw that there was a system, although the system, I would argue, is porous. I know it is porous. Leave that to the, for a discussion tomorrow. If you want to hear about those things, come back to tomorrow. I think I'll be hosted on the violence space tomorrow, and I'll be hosted on another space before that tomorrow. And then if they share the link with me, I'll do well to share it with you. So tomorrow we'll deal with the elections. Today we're talking about census. So if you have designed a process or a system, you must also design what is the human interaction with the system. For instance, in the just concluded elections, there were complaints about the individuals that had passwords failing to release those passwords to the people who are in the field. And as much as or as little as failure to release password can compromise even the best system. So when you're designing a system, you're designing also the process, who has the password, and some of those things. So then you also design the system for when tire meets the road. For instance, what happens when the PDAs are stolen? What happens when the PDAs are hijacked by communities? What happens, for instance, in areas where there is no internet, no network? Are the systems based, network based, or internet based, or are they, do they have a different technology? I think not all the states in Nigeria have concluded their geo-mapping. So there are not all the places in Nigeria you can drive to with your Google Maps or any of those things. There are some states that you don't have those maps available. So those places that you don't have complete geo-mapping of the states, has the government done a comprehensive geo-mapping that will help the enumerators identify where to go and where not to go? So those are the questions around when time meets the road. So if you have a system and you have a process, what happens when these systems and processes begin to interact in the real world? Because you design these systems and processes in the lab. Then what happens when they interact with the real world? What if they were stolen? What if they were accosted by community? What if rain fell that day? What if an official decides to be funny? So those are some of the things that we have to independently verify, not relying on what the NPC is saying. But Nigerians should insist that these processes are interrogated before the census. That's number 3. Then you move on to arguing that Nigeria has built its institutions really around strong individuals. So one of the key recurring figures or recurring arguments you hear pre the 2023 general elections is that, oh, Buhari wants to leave a legacy, oh, he's a man of integrity, oh, he doesn't want to interfere, oh, he has told INEC not to interfere, oh, Buhari was a man of integrity, wants to leave a legacy. So nobody is talking about systems and processes, they're talking about individuals. And that is unfortunately what we find ourselves in Nigeria. That even the current revolution that is happening in Nigeria is not about any institution. It's about an individual. We like that individual, but over-reliance on individuals as against systems and processes exposes you to shocks that could come when that individual suddenly dies, suddenly misbehaves. But if you have an institution, then there is a protection sort of. So today, the issues around census is also revolving around Buhari because Buhari is delivering 2 key things in the end of his tenure. 1 is election and the 2 is census. And so you ask yourself, why did he reject census in 2016, but he's doing it in 2023? And the question I ask Nigerians, does Buhari have the moral authority? Does he have the integrity to leave behind an acceptable national census? I repeat the question. If we are going to accept the census, or if we have sequestered or zoned out the preparation of the census to Buhari and the people he appointed, and the question is, looking at how he managed the elections, or how the elections were managed, because my argument, of course you can read it up, during that time was that Buhari has limited legal influence or legally permitted influence. I understand that Nigeria's president is powerful, but within our laws, there is a limit to how the president can manipulate or influence the outcome of the elections beyond routinely campaigning for his candidates, right? So anything he does outside of that is illegal. Whether we accept that it's illegal or not is a different question, but it should be known that it's illegal. So today, Buhari's influence on the outcome of the census figure is infinitesimal if we are going to by our laws. But because we know that Nigeria is not a place where laws are obeyed, where people defer more to individuals than they defer more to laws, then the question is, does this man have the integrity and the moral justification to conduct a census this close to the end of his administration? In the United States, for instance, where we copied what we're doing, towards the end of the tenure of a president or a sitting person, there are some sensitive decisions you don't make again. If your tenure is about to run out, for instance, you are not even allowed, or there is a major opposition when you are going to do a lasting impact. For instance, appointing a Supreme Court justice and all of those things. So today, the outcome of this census, I argue, will be far more consequential than the outcome of the elections. Or, let me rephrase, because some of you may not believe this. My argument is that whatever was done in 2023 can be undone in 2027. You have 4 years. Census, by our laws, take an upwards of 10 years, right? So if you don't get the census proper now, or if you have a manipulated census figure, then Nigeria's resources, the planning for Nigeria will continue to be predicated on a possibly manipulated census figure, which you, of course, if you look that far into the future, you will understand where the numbers will go, who will be more populous and who will be less populous. So, you know, I don't want to delve into that, but at least if we open these phone lines, we will know that Nigerians will know that there are some people, and then there are arguments, and I've read it about the argument about people who live in coastal lines being more populated than people who live in upper or arid regions. So those arguments are there, but if you allow these systems to engage as they are as of today, the most plausible outcome is that the census figure will have an unacceptable result. And I'm careful to say a rigged outcome, but I'm saying that the system, if it is open to manipulation, will be manipulated. So it is, my recommendation would be, 1, to stop all activities relating to the census exercise and delay it by 9 months.
9 months, yes, or at least 8 months. Why do I say that? We have to give enough time to interrogate the systems and the processes. That will take about 2 or 3 months. Then you also have to give the new government time to settle in. Already, I'm aware that the money have been released to them. How much now? 177 billion. And so they're in a haste to retire the money. Of course, you know how these things work. I'm not sure, but the money has been released. 177 billion was appropriated late last year. And if you recall, the budget for last year, national budget for last year, was carried on into this new year, into the 2023 year, because they couldn't spend some of the money last year. So that's 177 billion from 2022 was carried over into the 2023 budget, and that is where they are drawing money to conduct the exercise. So my recommendation, delay by 8 or 9 months. Allow for an independent multi-stakeholder audit of all the systems and the processes that will be deployed. If not, it will be another waste of 177 billion. What INEC did was a waste of money. NPC is almost about to waste your money again. So we have to ask them, stop a minute, wait a minute. Let us interrogate these systems before the census happens. That's number one. Number two, you allow the new government to settle in. There is election litigation, post-election litigation, and a lot of things about election, credibility of election. But the most important thing is that whether interim or elected, Nigeria will have a new government come May 29. So whatever the shape of that new government will be, we allow them to settle in and then conduct the census. Not conducting the census on blind trust and loyalty, but conducting the census when all the systems and the processes, if you've said that you are deploying 700,000 individuals, we want to know how were they trained? Who trained them? What is the training curricula? How many times were they trained? If you have PDAs, who has access to the server? Where is the server? Can we see the server in real time? If you have PDAs, what is the PDA? What are the security protocols around the PDA? What are the possible areas of manipulation? Because if you are going to be giving these PDAs to 700,000 unique, of course, not all of them will be given PDAs, but let's say you're giving PDAs to about 250,000 unique individuals. And these 250,000 unique individuals have the ability to exercise their autonomy over the individuals. Then, whether they are coerced or whether they were lobbied, if they have the autonomy to influence their will on the devices, they will certainly do that. Just like people had the ability to manipulate the beavers, people had the ability to delay the server, people had the ability to, you know a lot of things around the 2023 what happened there. So if those systems that will be deployed for the census are still porous to those kind of things, then more than likely that those breaches will occur. And I don't like crying when the milk is spilled. I like seeing problems ahead of time and pointing at the solutions ahead of time. You would say that this is coming 19 days to the elections or 19 days to the census. Yes, we can still stop it. If all the people on this Twitter space talk to the people they know, tweet about it, write to people, write to your Igwes, educate your PGs, talk to your Hanez Ndibo, talk to your Hausa community, talk to your whatever you belong to, whatever platform you have, tweet at the NPC, tweet at Arise TV, tweet at the major news anchors, write articles about these things, seek for more knowledge about these things, talk about them, and then just use your own small corner, write SMSs, send WhatsApp messages, send emails, tell people about the census, tell them why the census should be stopped and the systems, even if they're not agreeing to delay by 9 months, at least let them delay and subject these systems to integrity tests. And then when we all have confidence in the system, that we know that the systems are foolproof, then we can agree to walk into the census. So that at the end of the day, this might be the very first census in the history of Nigeria that will not have a contested outcome. If we walk into the census this way, trust me, the results will have a predetermined outcome. So thank you so much. It is now time to take your questions and comments and contributions, if any. So on Twitter, if you want, you can request for microphone and I will make you one of the hosts. What is happening to Twitter? Reconnect, please hold on. And then if you are, sorry about that. If you are on Twitter, please request for microphone. If you're on Facebook, you could request for, what is it called now? If you request, we can accept your live and you make your contributions. If you also want, you can type in your question. So I see that one person, Chris Affordile, has requested Chris, you're now a speaker. You can unmute yourself and make your contribution. I also see requests on Facebook. Ladidi Baki, I'm going to add you now to the live broadcast. Who else has requested? See. Who else? Who else? So, Chris, are you there? Chris, could you unmute yourself and make your contribution?
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Okay, so listening to the introduction, I am quite delighted that you raised these concerns regarding the 2023 National Population and Housing Census. That's what they call it.
Yes.
I'll speak to a few issues because I have a bit of idea on a couple of issues as concerns National Population Commission.
Yes, please.
I don't work there.
Mm-hmm.
I am not authorized to speak for them. But I will give an idea because I understand how they operate to an extent.
Yes.
Of our recent experience with the INEC.
Yes.
However, there's a lot of difference between what INEC and what the NPC is about to do.
Okay.
Let me begin with the history, a bit of the history. I'm not really blaming Mr. President for trying to handle that. I've asked that question a couple of times. However, the much I know, census ought to be done at length once in 10 years, where we are practicing the same system that we are doing in Nigeria. Before 2006, the last census was in 1991, and the one that was done in 2006, prior to that one, there was what they call trial census. But before trial census, you have the nations, the area demarcations. Those ones are specifically for buildings, trying to identify where there are no structures before and the new structures. I'm speaking to the issue of why it takes them some time and some of the challenges we should be interrogating. I want to talk about the manual aspects first. Then I'll come to what I know about the recruitment processes, the training processes, and why and the area we should actually quickly just to address one of the issues you have highlighted. On the aspect of why is it happening now? This ought to have happened in 2020. I remember that a top official in that place, I was having a discussion, I was saying, was due to retire at that time. And the person was saying, he's hoping that the census will take place before he retires. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, because of COVID and all whatnot. Now, the president or the commission has decided, okay, it's going to happen in 2023. The argument earlier on, sometimes last year was, is it actually proper to have a census after the general election? Just after the president was to leave. But the sentiment was, well, the president has approved, and he wants this to happen within his time. And then I said, okay, now, prior to now, because our researches are doing some researches, and most of the times, you go to the website of the National Population Commission, you will find that there is a digital counting of birth and death. The next 2 days after, I realized that was no longer there because there's something I couldn't see. The thing affected most of my submissions in that class because I discovered that Nigeria had no digital record. The implication is that you cannot have to go to the National Census or FPC office to get anything. Now, I'm giving credit to them for initiating this idea of the digital census. We hope that this will liberate or take us forward from where we are, because it's a major issue. I'm also aware that there is a documentation every day or every week and per month. The best that is recorded in primary health centers, general hospitals, normal regular hospitals, and the best that are recorded also are documented. Now, on the issue of recruitment for this census, I'm aware that applications were thrown open and people were meant to apply through the websites. I'm also aware that, of course, Nigerian factors will play out.
What are those Nigerian factors? What are those Nigerian factors?
The Nigerian factors were, an organization that was having this present digital system for the first time. And about 2 hours they launched their website for recruitment. They had a challenge because there was pressure on that system. They had to suspend it. I was interacting with somebody I know that is working in the ICT department. In the night, actually, that they had launched that portal. I realized that in the next morning, they had come up with another link, suspending other link. And I thought it was a challenge. Just like you mentioned about professionals, engaging professionals in every sector. I think NBC is an institution that is working. I'm not praising them. I'm not trying to make it look as if they are doing fantastically well. It's one of the government institutions that is working. Only that now that we are bringing a flashlight on them, we are going to be bringing out a couple of things that we think have not been done right to enable them to improve. So I noticed also that, of course, in the process of recruitment, there is process. First of all, you train facilitators. These facilitators are mostly lecturers or retired senior civil servants. It's not just anybody. You must have a minimum of MSc, to the best of my knowledge, at least in the southern part of Nigeria. And then, of course, in the FCC, where I understand it. I know that most people who are recruited for facilitator job, that is training of trainers, or yes, training of the people that are working, that are going to be their top staff, are mostly people with a minimum of MSc. And most people in this particular category are lecturers, and people who are directorate level or cadre in whatever capacity who have retired. Now that is what they did screening. It is at that point that we may now interrogate, but there's a little difference between what they are doing and what INEC did. I noticed that in the case of INEC, a lot of people were invited to training. But along the line, people who were invited to training were substituted. And that's why, if you recall in the Anambra election, they started very late. I had to put questions across to certain persons, and I realized that in the night before the election, and at this time, they hadn't listed people adult staff that were supposed to engage in the elections or prosecute the elections. And this is as a result of political interests. Christian, you and I have participated in electoral processes in the past, and you understand that there are political interests when it comes to electioneering. By implication, politicians take interest in at least one or two adult staff in each ward. This is similar to what you are going to experience, but the difference is that if you are not going to participate in the training, I am going to one because I have known this before now. If you are not going to participate in the training, in fact, this is going to be the most technical training of all. So coordinators train, you have no coordinators. I don't want to talk to better analysis because those ones are specialized area. And because there are a couple of persons who applied and they were not taken because they did not have the required certificates or certification that they need. Despite that, if you don't have it, forget about it. But for those who are enumerators, supervisors, group coordinators, those ones are also going to be held liable in areas that are going to have issues. Why am I saying this? That the way they set their system, during the training, you are going to pass the exam. It is a digital system. This digital system, we are going to have a couple of challenges with the issue of the mapping, area mappings that you're talking about. But census, everything that I know, has a map drawn. This was done by those who did the area demarcation. So they categorize it word by word. That's the way they're going to do it. 6 persons will be in charge of an area and area demarcated with a supervisor. Now, these persons are about 3 in a ward. They are going to have a field coordinator. Now, if your map, the digital map is not working, you are going to have the paper map, which you are expected to use it to consider your movements. At the end of the day, if you are not able to, if you remember, when you were doing a press briefing at the time, they said, if they are not able to cover the days, they are not able to cover an area, a certain area within the days that they confirm this, they will give additional days. Census usually, NBC usually give about 7 days to cover an area. That's why they recruit the number of persons they do. Now, in terms of whether we should trust them, well, personally, I think we should just give 40% trust. And in terms of
40%, 40%, 40%.
When I say 40%, what I mean by 40% is that as an institution, there are many things they ought to offer, which is there. Those things is that what's more, when the system is down, they already have their mapper system, which has been working. But on the aspect of the taking aspects, it now involves people from different areas. If you recall, sometime in December 2022, the governor of Anambra State called a meeting of the town unions or something like that and was advising them that they should go use that December to prepare for census. What does that mean? Every state is interested in the outcome of census. In the past, people in the southeast, people in the south, we are not really interested as such. They were not ready to invest so much, invest, because they think it's just one of those government programs that should run. So, but at 2006, people in the southern Nigeria became more interested because they understand it is not just counting heads, it is also counting properties. So when the awareness is raised, what the question should be, what are the mechanisms in place to enable us ensure that the decidedness in counting does not develop? These are the case every time census is being done.
Okay, Chris, I will have to stop you there. And then please stay close to your microphone. I'll read something for you, and then I'll ask you a question, and I'll give you a minute to respond. Then we'll move on to the next speaker. Let me read this. This is not my view. This is the view of the Conversation Africa. I quote, census has always been problematic in Nigeria. The 1962, 1963, and 1973 census were bedeviled with controversies. They were mostly about deliberate manipulation of census figures at the subnational levels. Subnational means states. The 1973 census provoked debates along ethnic lines. In 2006, the Lagos state government rejected the figures and ran a parallel census. The 2006 census was the last one. So Nigeria is overdue for another. The political interference was enormous and hampered the scientific process. So Chris, I don't have issues with the recruitment, with the training. The problem is that the political process always hamper the scientific process. In the elections, we saw systems deployed, but we saw that the political influence hampered the scientific or technological influence. So this time around, you are going to see influential governors deploy their money. You are going to see stakeholders deploy influence. So my question is, if you are giving PDAs to people, and the PDAs you gave them, whether they were induced by money or whether they were held at gunpoint, which may happen, or whether they were threatened, if those individuals have the ability to either directly or indirectly, or doing or not doing, compromise the system or technically alter the outcome, then we should hold that system to a jugular, improve it so much so that the system is now almost 100% foolproof, that it is not subject or it is not a victim of political pressure. So my question to you, and I'll have 1 minute for you to respond, is knowing what we know about the system and that the political pressure will come, and that the people that will be doing this, some of them will be doing this at a great threat to their lives, some of them not all, especially in those problematic areas. Is the system strong enough to withstand political pressure? By the system, I mean the systems, the processes, the individuals. I didn't want to ask you whether or not senators made recommendation. I didn't want to ask you or not whether governors made recommendation as the people that will be recruited. You said that they applied on a website. I didn't want to ask you whether it was the website that now recruited them or whether it was individuals that sat and received the information from the website and invited the people they wanted. So those issues are there. But the question I have for you, looking at the systems and the processes, are they foolproof? Because you know that political pressure will come. Are you confident that these systems are beyond the reach of political pressure?
Well, I cannot guarantee you that there will be no political interest. It is not possible. I've also noticed with during the recruitment processes. The recruitment process has not been completed. I'm aware that they have just finished the screening, and I somehow heard from someone that some of the commissioners had nominated some persons, so they have to do the processes again. The training hasn't even been started. Hasn't even started. Now, but on the issue of whether there will be political interest, definitely, just as the governor of Anambra had said openly, it's not hidden. It's a public knowledge. Every other state, and he harped on the need, so that it will help also in national whatever they're doing at the national level. Perhaps the way they collect national allocations or monthly allocation. So we cannot totally, for now, there is little we can do to change or to stop political interests, be it by the governors, be it by the traditional rulers, be it by the religious leaders, or whatsoever. We can only insist that data collected at the level, or a certain level, is properly documented. I think one of the things we should be pushing for is the full digitization of the commission, so that we can have data as much as we can, as much as we desire. It's for those people who actually engage in researches that may be needed at the international level. Because sometimes the reason why the presidential candidate of the Labour Party had issues with the figures he keeps giving most of the time, as as far as national politics is concerned or national demography is concerned, is because you can never have an accurate data. World Bank may give its own data, UNDP may give a different data, national population will give a different data, national bureau of statistics will give a different data. Those are conflicting. And so one of the other things we should be pursuing is let us have a synchronized system. Let's have MPC work together with NIM, National Identity Management Commission, and let them also work with NIDA. Let them also work with all the digital organizations in Nigeria so that all this information will be synchronized and we don't need to be wasting the huge funds we do. Let me yield the mark at this point.
Thank you so much, my dear brother. Thank you very much. Let me read this for you, also from the same source. The way resources are shared in Nigeria's political system puts unnecessary pressure on the census. It encourages competitive maneuvering and manipulative tendencies at all levels. The 2006 post-enumeration survey was poorly planned and poorly implemented. Census data were not released to researchers for further analysis and scrutiny. So here comes the problem again. Do we have the guarantee that the census data, not just telling us the number, but how you arrived at the number between 2006 and now, how they conducted that exercise, it has not been open to scrutiny. Just like we are dealing with, is there a server, is there no server, will the beavers be reconfigured, will the beavers not be reconfigured? After you have concluded your data, your survey, no problems. The data and the survey generated, release it to researchers so that they can make further analysis and they can scrutinize your figure. Because if you're a professor, there's a professor in another school. So if you said you use this XYZ method, for instance, there are people who knew XYZ, who knows XYZ method, but the inability to release the metadata that will help scientists and forensic experts look at what you've done to say, oh no, I think there was something wrong somewhere. That thing is not there. So I don't even know if our laws have made it compulsory for the MPC to release the metadata of all the analysis to researchers and especially forensic guys to be able to look at the population thing that they've done and be able to say, okay, I think the mistakes are too inconsequential, or that they are too consequential that they might have impacted the outcome of the census. So then let me conclude this. So census data were not released to researchers for further analysis and scrutiny. This makes it difficult to use the 2016 census, 2006 census as a basis for the 2022 census. So census are progressive, just like you have elections progressive, right? As you would know, Chris, and perhaps other listeners of the podcast. So the data on 2006 helps to build up the planning for 2003 and 23. But now this article is saying that because of issues around the 2006 and then the almost near consensus that the figures are impeachable, right? That if you are building the 2003, predicating it on the planning of the 2006, then you are building on a shaky foundation. And because of that, the recommendations are quite there. So I'll recommend that you guys go to my Twitter page, my latest tweets. If you have the time, find time to read that article and educate yourself on some of the issues around 2023 exercise. Not when the census is done, we don't talk, we don't critique the systems, we don't critique the processes, we don't investigate, we don't do anything, we don't talk about recruitment, who has access to the server, is their server, who did the demarcation, who did the recruitment. Not after all this is said and done, people will come and start crying on Twitter, oh, they counted and they did not count well. So this is the best time to critique the system and then to ensure that the system are designed. They referenced Sudan, what Sudan did in 2008. And Sudan, it seems to me, according to this article, seem to be not so shining example, but an example that systems and processes can be designed that they can withstand. Not that political pressures will not be deployed, but if you deploy political pressure where the system cannot be manipulated, you're just wasting your pressure because the systems were designed not to be tampered with. But if you leave as little as a backdoor in the system, then just know that politicians will find those backdoors and they will come through those backdoors to influence the system.
Yes, one of the last things I want to add is that we should also take to obtain the National Population Commission Act.
Yes.
So that we will know where there is need to put for legislative or legislation as we move forward. I think that will go a long way also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mazi, the floor is yours. Yes, Mazi, please go ahead. You're raising your hand, unmute your microphone and make your contributions.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good evening.
All right. Distinguished Chima, my brother, I'm really happy for what you're doing. I listened, although I was 5 minutes late, but I was able to capture what your concerns were. Okay, and then also, truly, the issues of census is very important. But then, my concern is that most people don't really understand the economic impact or the implications of the census, because at the end of the day, we think it's just some people may think, not naturally that everybody thinks. I know that at least some of us that understand what it is knows, but some people, a bigger percentage of people think that it's just a religious process that everybody does. It's because every other country does it. That's why we should do it. So some people will now begin to think it's just a normal process, come out and be counted and all of this. Let me just drag us to the Bible when the importance of census, became very paramount for God, that He even told Moses that the blessings is going to give to the children of Israel, that nobody can count. Okay, he was speaking to Abraham this time, that nobody can count such. And at any point anybody counted them, God counted it as a sin. Do you understand? The blessings that God promised Abraham, when He wanted to give it to him, He said nobody can count it. Even the seeds that you're going to have. Remember, it's Abraham that was even trying to have just one seed. So at the end of the day, the importance of census cannot be overemphasized. Now, let me just give us one example in terms of the economic implications. The impact of census informs the type of budget allocations that happen to regions. Even it boils down to local governments, and even the citizens that were counted, the impact. So that brings us back to the ideology that happened in time past about divide and rule. You recall that at the end of the day, the North seem to have more local governments than people in the East and that of the South. So you begin to think, what is the political concern in that? It affects the budget allocation. It in fact affects the value of approvals given in certain projects to any governor, even to senators, to people at the House of Reps, and all of those. So now, this is just to mention but a few. But before I continue, I will appreciate my brother Chris, although I think he's battling with his network, but I would have loved him to hear what I'm saying. My brother Chris made a very important comment, which I appreciated. But then I disagreed at the point he said that that of INEC, the data of INEC, or the data during election, that the issues that P2P had was because P2P seemed to be quoting a different figure, and then realistically, there were data information that were coming from different bodies, and then the statistics were incorrect. I disagree. The reason I disagree is because when you have a central data source, there shouldn't be any room for disparities. There shouldn't be any room for different figures. But what happened with INEC is that the value they gave to their polling agents, which they snapped, suddenly became different with what they populated at their headquarters. So that is why you see not only Labour Party now making comments, but PDP was also making comments. Now you see part of PDP's comments were inclusive of the fact that they were emphasizing locations where Labour Party won and suddenly APC was declared. So this time around, you have a central source of statistics. Not unlike what Chris was arguing, when you have, for example, for example, a body like UN wants to do their own data, they have a different sample size, they have a different source of data. It may vary. So this time during elections, there should be one source that is trusted. So now, that's just the point at which I disagreed. But every other thing said we are beautiful in terms of recruitment and all of those. But let me just make this quick comment. I think representatives, government representatives act based on their interest. Let's understand that INEC is just like a making of the federal government by constitution. So whatever they do, there will be a kind of invisible interference from the federal government. Yes, by law, it will not be visible, but there are invisible interference, no matter how much we look at it, because politics has been brought into it. So there should be an invisible, there has been an invisible interference with the system. So now, NPC, I recall when our distinguished anchor, the convener Chima, was making some certain comments. He said, when disagreed at some point about this census of a thing, and suddenly agrees, and now he's leaving office. Why did he agree? So now we come to think about it. So now there should be a degree that all of us must be awake to. We must be awake to the fact that there should be a degree, whether it's minute or whether it's big or whether it's a bigger percentage or lesser probability or higher probability, there will be a degree of political interference in any institution created by the federal government, or rather, call it the executive arm of government, no matter whichever or where it comes from. So, with that understanding, we should know that just like Chris earlier was when he was responding to based on his first comment, he said that issues of training and retraining, as it happened with INEC, was issues of substitution. I have a friend that he had been an observer with us. So suddenly she decided to understand what is happening with the INEC process. So she applied as an INEC adult staff. And luckily for her, I would say it's lucky. She was lucky. Luckily for her, she was dropped by that same INEC, and people who weren't trained were automatically brought into the process, simply because she was part of the people that interrogated the process during training. So they brought in people who can answer to them, and not actually people who came for training. So she found out that she was very scared. She was crying. That was night before the redeployment day. So it dawned on her, and she learned that lesson. And this was very important. So for us, whoever that was trained or whether untrained, that shouldn't matter to us now. What we should know is that we have little or no chances of delaying this process when they want to start it. What we can do is to start early enough to engage the citizens of Nigeria to understand the economic impact of counting, the economic impact of 2023 census. Chief made a very vital point, or critical as that. He said, in as much as we're going to give time to whichever government that comes in, whether it's by handover or by interim, that after we have given them time to settle down, this issue will come to bear. But I can tell you that this atmosphere is already in the process of being groomed, or being what do you call it, hashed, incubated, or whatever word you can use. The process is going on now because it has to do with economic impact and economic decisions. Remember, when we had the issue with the minister for, I've forgotten the name now, Pantami. We know Honorable Pantami, Honorable Minister Pantami. I don't know if I can't remember his portfolio now, but he was in charge of the NIN registration and all of those. And we heard that at some point, people who were part of who were Nigerian citizens were getting NIN registration, NIMC registration, and they were getting NIN numbers. What does that tell us? It reemphasizes the fact, what Chima said earlier, that we don't have a unified database. And that was why NF was easy. They found it easy to manipulate the whole process while it's still in court. So that it doesn't sound like I'm already being assertive, but then while it's still in court. So these are important things we should know. So what we can do now is advocacy to traditional rulers, policy makers, influential people at the community, at the community level, at the local government level, at state level, and then regional level. People should understand that this census informs how government take their decisions in terms of economic sharing. So when we understand this thing, we know that it affects everybody. You know, when we talk about electing competent persons into power, it speaks volume. Just like that, we're at the level of census. Now, thank God for Chima, he raised this issue very early. So now, we're looking at the issues as it concerns how we're going to move forward. So when you don't elect competent persons into office, you now see them feeling less concerned at this point because they don't really understand. So at the end of the day, my brothers in the north who don't even know what is happening will just see figures inflated. At the end of the day, this if it's about projects, if it's about economic development, you see it being approved for certain individuals who are in government, and then they don't get to implement it. That is where Chris was mentioning about the political interest. So you see people who are in power in charge of getting approvals for all this development according to the outcome of the 2023 census. You see that because they have political interest, which will lead to siphoning monies for their personal needs, or more, let's call it corruption. So you now see them siphoning monies. So you now see a ripple effect of electing people who are incompetent into power. So it needs to be overemphasized because people don't understand that whoever you elect into office affects other sub-policies that will help government, even at the subnational level, to function. So I agree totally what Chris' argument at this point, that there are people who have political interest, and this political interest is because of incompetency and then outcomes of corruption which have been found in them. So that is why we should now rise up. So the last issue becomes, how are we going to fund the process? Because you can't just go and engage a traditional law. For example, Chima, you understand, for example, in the demography in Anambra State, when you go to engage a traditional ruler, and it's not a traditional law you've worked with, it's just about maybe 50% of traditional law, thankfully, in Anambra State, appreciate the presence of NGOs and their rules, and also community development workers like yourself, their rules in terms of shaping governance and other things. So at some point, they will understand the fact that you don't have money to do these things. So they encourage their cabinet members and their community members. But in some communities that they must require those due diligence, like paying homage, which will cost you money and all of those, to get the attention, the President General and the cabinet members to come and listen to what you have to say, although it benefits them. But then the funding becomes a concern. How are we going to do it? Maybe I want to ask, for example, it's time for us to maybe organize ourselves, because we need to organize ourselves now and maybe seek for funding opportunities that will enable us to go into these communities. I emphasize advocacy and what you call sensitization, so that they understand what this is about, so that when the process is not genuine in terms of scrutiny of the system, for example, scrutiny of the system, when we communicate to them that the process of the documentation is not trusted, traditional rulers can stop them from coming into their community, because people listen to them, their policymakers at the community level. They can easily influence to tell them, please, anywhere you see NPC officials, please, boycott them. Let them not be in the community. Let them get out until the process is certified clean. So you now see that we may have a challenge of funding in terms of mobilizing these people, because not all of them understand the fact that they should come free, irrespective of the fact that without funding of transportation and all of those. It's just about few communities to understand that according to states. So now, we should now talk about how
could you round up in 30 seconds so that we take more speakers, please?
Yeah, I will try. Honestly, these issues, you don't have limited time to talk about them. But then, I really appreciate what you're doing, because at the end of the day, we'll get to talk about this rule of citizens. And then, in fact, what I'm saying is that we should engage them early enough, because just like INEC happened, you see some people walking away. Naturally, if it is in a standard community, they will say, well, since some party agents have walked away from the collation process, let's pause and bring them back. But they continued. So when this NPC process starts, I don't think we can do much to stop them, but we can now start early enough to engage people, so that when it happens, we can have more stakeholders on our side in terms of engaging them to do the right thing. So I must appreciate him, I must appreciate Chris that have commented, and I'll be here to listen to some other people and also learn a lot. And I encourage all us to actively participate in this process. Chris, I appreciate everybody, in fact. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have somebody on Facebook, Izundu, I believe, Oge. Izundu, are you able to unmute yourself and make your contribution or ask your questions? Oh, okay. Okay, now that I think she's left. Okay, we have, okay, Tony Star, your hand is up. Please, if you want to speak, make questions, contributions, either you type it out in the chat or you request for microphone, and then we'll take turns to pass it to you. May I please beg us, for time's sake, may we please limit our questions and contributions to 3 minutes, so that we can wrap up in good time and then focus on other things. Tony, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chimba. Good evening, speakers and other listeners. Before I move on, Mr. Chimba, I would take lots of questions, and which I will try to give answers to concerning the 2023 population and housing census. And also, I just want to say this first, while I still listen, and by the time I'll give answers to every questions, it might cover everything in general. So I would have to be answering questions one by one. And also, by me answering some questions, it might bode well with some people and might not to some people. Simply Jesus Christ could not contain what everybody wants. But before I use my mind and listen to people's opinions and I give answers, I would gladly state two things first. One, the National Population Commission will not, and have never politicized anything about population and housing census. NPC has always dissociated itself from anything politics. That is one. From selection from zonal training, state level training, and moving ahead down to local level training. Selection of all participants has been done by merit and from screening and selection of candidates for each position or post that anybody will vote. So I can also tell you that almost everything about the 2023 population and housing census is digitalized. From satellite image mapping, PDAs, and all sorts of instruments that will be used for 2023 population and housing census. So I'm going to reiterate this again, that NPC has never in any way politicized anything pertaining to 2023 population and housing census. So I think older people are beginning to wonder or worry about if this whole thing has to do or take anything to do with INEC or policies or whatnot. In everything the NPC has always done, it has always dissociated itself away from politics. Recruitment of adult staffs and then has always dissociated itself from politics. Stating that again. So, Mr. Kilman, I'm still here.
Yes.
I know a whole lot of people have so many things to say. So, for me to be able to answer questions at once, I would like to stay on the space, be on the speaker, listen to people's questions, and if you have permitted me, address them at one go, if I'm permitted, so that I would have to answer A, B, C, D different times. So,
do you have affiliation? Do you have affiliation with NPC?
Okay, moving on. Yes, I am a staff officer of Population Commission, and I can tell you I am not the only NPC staff for this place presently. Do you understand? So I am not the only staff of NPC on this place. So I know people have questions. We have there's always topics about sensors, preparations, where we are, where we should be, what we should be doing, and what we are not doing yet. We are going to school to the yes. We are not perfect. Everybody has their own mistakes. So, Mr. Chima, I'm still here. I will read the mic. I will listen, and at point I will give answers to questions to the best of my capability. Thank you for now.
Well, thank you so much, Tony, for taking the time to speak with us, and also thank you for laying out your background so that people who are listening to us from diverse backgrounds know where you're coming from. Mine is not a question, but of course, we are all entitled to our views. So I agree with you that you believe, and knowing what you know as an insider within the organization, that none of the political interference could happen or is happening. But what I want to remind you is a historical perspective that the 1962 and 1963 elections were contested, census reports were contested. People didn't believe that. 1973 census contested. 2006 census. In fact, a state government rejected it flatly. As at today, people don't still believe that Nigeria's population figure is correct. You could hear, let me read one of these things to you. Let me read one, just one to you. There are about, this is coming from a body called, what is their name again now? Please give me a minute to find it. Not geographic information. Where is the 2 billion people now? According to Population Reference Bureau, PRB, approximately 3 billion people. That's about half of the world's population. I'm quoting them, not my data. According to the Population Reference Bureau, approximately 3 billion people, about half of the world's population, live within 200 kilometers of a coastal line, with the figure expected to double in 2025. So they are saying that people are more attracted and people live are more populated within areas around coastal line. That is why traditionally in countries of the world, that people tend to live more in areas where there is a body of water as to areas where there is aridness or dryness. So that the drier it becomes, the more sparsely populated they become. The more you have a proximity to water that facilitates trading, commerce, and all of those things, the more you have population. And this is not going to be the first time I believe you will hear this argument, that people are questioning, why is the South, which lives closer to the water, Lagos, which lives closer to the water, less populated than, for instance, arid places? Why is Nigeria disobeying from a global or established global norm? So that's a question, and census figure will help us to answer that question. Unfortunately, not many people. Before the elections, you will recall that 68% of Nigerians don't believe that INEC can conduct regular elections. I think it was either Pew Research or something. But if you question that, I can find a source of the data. 68% of Nigerians don't trust INEC, did not trust INEC before the elections to conduct a credible elections. I don't know what the numbers are for NPC, but you are well in your right to say within the systems that you're working with, that you are confident enough that NPC is free from all sorts of political manipulation. So thank you so very much for staying on our speaker list. And then if there is need to speak, you just raise your hand, and if time permits, we will give you the opportunity to respond to questions. Daniel, your hand is up. Yes, please go ahead. And Biko, please, sorry, don't make this confrontational. Daniel, let me set a ground rule here, please. The questions will have to be, if the essence of the debate is not to inform and not to learn and not to make impact on the system, my goal this evening, really, my own goal, is to see if we can demand that the systems be further improved. As for political pressure, I know it will come. But what I'm looking at is systems and processes that can be improved, that it can withstand political pressure. So that when the governors and the overbearing kings and traditional rulers and religious rulers and even gun-wielding lords, because there are some areas in Nigeria that are being controlled by, whether we agree with it or not, by non-state actors. Whether those non-state actors can capture these enumerators and force them to do what they don't want to do. So what I'm looking at is, can we query these systems? Can we look at what is there? Can we suggest improvements? Can we be sure that regardless of the situation, when tire meets the road, that the systems are beyond reproach? So Daniel, in that context, could you please ask your question or make your contribution, but please don't make it confrontational.
Thank you so much, Chima. I really want to appreciate you. You're doing a great job. And of course, I appreciate all the speakers who have contributed. I sense this last speech, which seems to be like a gatekeeping speech with all sense of sincerity. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead,
okay.
Daniel.
All right. Which looks like a gatekeeping speech, if I could put it that way. It's because it seems like I'm the first neutral person who's going to speak as an average, Nigerian on this space. And I'm going to be very blunt, because this is something that I know will be taking a huge sum from the Nigerian purse to the commission who side the responsibility of conducting this process if it eventually pulls through. Now, that's what I'm going to say first. I love what the last three speakers said, the last three neutral speakers, not neutral, but, except just after the whole spoke, some of the lads, some of the, people who spoke after that. And I don't think they were neutral people. And thank God Mr. Tony was very open and was made his identity know. Why? Because I feel we also want to contribute in one way or the other to help sensitize Nigeria on reasons why we should be convinced that this process is 100% for our benefit and has no interior motive of whatsoever, personal or there is nothing, there's no cockroach in the cupboard, so to say. And like I said, permit me to use these words I'm using because I'm trying as much as possible to be very blunt. And it's not in any way to debar or debunk what we're trying to promote here, because I'm being honest, like I said. But it's also to let you know that, listen, Nigerians will believe you if you can convince them with genuine facts, and you don't even hide your own, benefits, so to say, in quote, when you're trying to relate whatever information you want to relate to them. And that is what I've discovered over time. This is one of the, don't let me go into politics. Now, concerning the population commission census, or whatever it's called, basically we want to do a census. An average Nigerian man on the street to tell you, Oga, or count us. This money, look for a way to ensure that instead of counting us all over again, like you said, we've had census in the past. This is not the first time Nigeria is going to be having census. Instead of doing another census, why not come up with a scheme or structure or a system that will help aid easy registration of an average citizen? Say, for example, in developed climes, like we all know, there is a systematic process by which, population have been, numbers of people coming in and out of the country is being monitored. I don't think it's rocket science. It's something we can do in this part of the world. If we could have social media platforms, why can't the NIN, the NIMC, if that's what it's called, the National Identity Management Commission, if I get that right, why can't they be upgraded to get to a level where each Nigerian citizen will have an account on those on their portal, if that's what it's called. When you go to a certain age, the portal will improve. You know, your identity, just like you upgrade your Instagram account, you can upgrade your NIN account. So that people will know where you stand. And when the persons die, there is a way, there should be a way to let people know, okay, this person is dead. Now, with such system, you could control the number of people in the country. I don't think that should be a difficult thing to do. Now, like I said, I'm going to be speaking as an average Nigerian who is just looking at things from, you know, a layman's perspective, which I don't think is absolutely wrong if you look at it critically. Because what we're talking about here is something we've done times and time again. And like we all agree here, it has never worked in the past. Many people have cried foul over it. Somebody once said, the state governor said he doesn't agree with what was counted in his state. Is it now that the country is in a state of comatose, where this administration has failed in everything, that you now want them to conduct a national population census and expect Nigerians to believe that the numbers they'll give you is accurate? A country that cannot successfully change a naira note without having hiccups. Listen, let's not joke with Nigerians. Let's be blunt with ourselves. Listen, I know there's a whole lot of benefit for those who are working in these organizations, because it's a time for boom. They've been waiting for long, and the time eventually comes and they just feel, oh, let's go on sensitization. Let's go on Twitter space. Let's let Nigerians know that, okay, this thing is actually for their benefit. You know, let's sensitize them and do all of that. Hello, let's tell ourselves the truth. Why do we necessarily need to start counting ourselves one by one, when we could come up with structures that could aid a system where even in 30, 40 years time, it will still be running? We won't have to be thinking of doing another national population census in the next 10 years. That is what we should be looking at. Well, I would love to drop the mic here, because I know this isn't, many of the people here are probably not going to agree with me on this, because like I said, just by listening to the first three people, I can sense the huge chunk of population of the, you know, people who are going to be on this page. But then it's good to hear another person's perspective who probably doesn't believe, you know, in what is being promoted in quotes. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm open to learn. I'm open to be convinced, you know, by many people on this space who I believe shares the same opinion with the earlier speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Tony Star, and then thank you all our platform guests. And when you were speaking, Daniel, something came to my mind, because the issues you talked about revolved around trust. And the question I want the Omolola is here. Omolola has been tumbling down to anything that seemed to impeach the integrity of the NPC. So I guess maybe she's affiliated with the NPC or a consultant to the NPC. I'm also, let me not say this. So seeing the mood of the country, especially with the disappointments that greeted the elections. No disappointment in terms of who won, but disappointment in terms of the systems and the processes. That Nigerians seemingly don't have problems with who won. What I have heard from Nigerians is the processes that produce the winner. That even if the person won landslide, that operational inefficiency within the INEC, inability to manage expectations, inability to manage the elections, even inability to adhere to its own laws, or to come up with good rational explanations as to why some of those systems had the issues they did, it suggests to people that even if Mr. Tinubu had won his election fair and square, that people are beginning to suspect that he didn't win. Now, seeing that the trust in the institution distrust in the bank, there was fuel scarcity before now, there was naira scarcity before now. The people queued to obtain their PVCs. PVCs were found in the gutters. People picked up those PVCs, struggled to obtain them, struggled, queued up to vote, voted under rain and sun, and then the elections happened the way they did. Does the NPC think that it is safe enough for them to deploy their staff, looking at the mood of the country? One, several non-state actors are in Nigeria today, operating within their limited spaces. Two, even for where non-state actors are not, people are generally unhappy. I can imagine a situation where enumerators will come to a particular town and people will take out their anger on them. So we don't encourage these things, of course, but these are some of the things that we have to put out in the drawing board or in listing out all the possible scenarios. And for me, personally, this is my personal view. I think that it is not wise to deploy now. We could, wait a bit till this anger in the land, occasioned by fuel scarcity, naira scarcity, and disappointment with INEC, let people. There is so much so that people can take in one go. So if it is possible, take this as a feedback to NPC. And before I yield the mic to the next speaker, may I please commend the NPC, right? Because the NPC understands the value of the media and understands the value of engaging its audience. That is why it has recruited social media influencers. It has recruited, some of them are on retainership basis, some of them are on contract basis. I'm aware of these things. Some of the social media influencers, some are even staff of the organization that have been mandated to go to speak for the organization on issues like this. So it is a sign of progress that they have opened up more channel of communication with Nigerians. But the essence of communication, if it is to advertise what the organization is doing, that is one. But if it's also to take in information to further strengthen their processes, it will be more appreciated. So Tony Star, in making your contributions to the platform, not necessarily being so defensive to the point of we not hearing each other. But I don't expect you to accept that challenges exist. But at least when you are painting NPC in good light, to also promise us that you're going to take back some of our comments, contributions to them as a way for them to review their operations and deployment come whenever they will deploy. So who is the next speaker now?
Mr. Chima, please, can I just...
Okay, since you are making a rebuttal or something, I will give you, can you take 60 seconds for this? And if need be, okay, extend it to 90 seconds. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Also, thank you once again. Moving on, I would want to let people know that census did not just start this year.
Yes.
The census has begun from the first stage of EADs in 2017. Demarcation exercises, first phase, second phase, third phase. Then we went ahead to special population, evaluation of special populations. Then also, after that, we went ahead to trial census before coming down to this stage that we are presently. And also on the matter of security of our enumerators, NPC is doing everything we can to try and bring in our ad hoc enumerators from each local government that people are mostly familiar with. We will not take someone from Southwest and tell you to go and enumerate the North. Or we will not take someone from another local government to another local government. We would train people, put them where they are close, where they are, where the place that is their own terrain, they are familiar with. They will just be there with supervisors that would be able to, okay, fine, this is what you do, this is where you start from, this is this is what you will trained on, this is how to address people. Because the training also carries how to address it. You don't just go to people and be like, I'm here, who is here? No. There has to be a focal respect for who you are going to interview as an enumerator. So you don't just go to people, or you don't just post people to places where they don't know. And also, someone was asking on the comment section about digitalization of everything. Yeah, just like Jim said, I will not just always try to defend every school. Yeah, we are getting there. Rome was not this. We are getting there. Because I can tell you categorically that NPC has an office in every local government in the country. If you go to local government and you don't find an NPC office there, come back here and join. There is an NPC office in every local government in the country. And also somebody was saying, why is that? It's only when they want to be census that we are hearing of NPC. I'm telling you, it is because most people are really not well inclined about NPC. So, but I just want to give these few details. I'm still here listening, then giving more answers to questions. I just want to chip in this few for this moment. Thank you very much. I hit that mic for now.
Thank you. Okay, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
First off, thanks for creating the space, and my thanks to all speakers. There's been a lot of things that has been said, so I'm not going to repeat all of them. But I think I need to reiterate that everything you said about previous censuses that have been done in Nigeria, being heavily critiqued and even outrightly called scams, is very, very valid. Using data taken from various places, showing things like human congregation around water bodies, over arid lands. So, but my question is this: I actually found out about you on the violence space, and for me, it's significant to point that out because I think it's not that Nigeria doesn't have a lot of people working, civil society, people like you. But the problem is there has been a disconnect between what you guys have been finding out. For instance, you've been speaking about INF for more than a year. And, it's after the election that I know that your videos are going viral. You understand? So there's been a very massive disconnect between the few, Nigerians, because the people in civil society are in the minority, far minority, and being able to disseminate the information that they gather so that it reaches people, regardless of the fact that there's a lot of apathy in Nigeria regarding people and lack of distrust, but there's been a big gulf between people like you doing so many good work and that work being able to get to the Nigerian people. And for me, I think one of the biggest things about the obedience movement was how the whole election process was broken down and was able to be communicated en masse to so many people, and able to raise the army of active citizens that we saw that came to the polls in Nigeria. So looking at that context, how do you think, what support do you think the civil society, people like you, need to keep doing what you're doing and most importantly, to be able to reach a lot of people with information and the things that you're discovering? Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Okay. You made 2 points. One is about the general, things around, because if really I wasn't here in 1973, I wasn't here in 1972, but you have history books to read. But I believe that if those census were well managed, that people would generally accept it. If those census, but at least as at 2006, looking at my age, of course, you will know that maybe I was at the primary school or what, so I won't claim that I followed that election, the census. But again, from the commentaries you see around that census, especially documented, the most poignant one. Look, a lot of stakeholders denounced that census. The most poignant ones are the ones that are reported, the Lagos State. In fact, Lagos State went ahead to commission an independent census to prove to the Nigerian states that what they counted was not, because the leaders then had the presence of mind to do it, and they also had the resources to do it. Some states we are still struggling for paying teachers' salaries as at that 2006, so they couldn't have organized an independent enumeration exercise. So that is that on the trust issue. And it's not just with NPC. Generally, Nigerian institutions have not gotten to a stage where they are able to inspire confidence. And some of the distrust in the system is earned. For instance, if INEC comes out tomorrow to say things to Nigerians, if Nigerians suspect them, that suspicion is earned. So if NPC is not trusted by Nigerians, it is earned. If the police is not trusted by young Nigerians, it is earned. So if you want to earn the trust of Nigerians, you have to work hard at it. It is not just going to TV stations, radio stations. You have to work hard. But I see that OKK is raising his hand again, your hand again. So is there something you want to add before I respond to the second part of your question? OKK.
Yes.
Okay,
this is regarding, because Tony spoke about, and the problem in Nigerian institutions is not the fact that the law are inherently corrupt or bad for the Nigerian people, and it comes to something that I think Maz spoke about, the disassociation, the true independence of bodies that was formed by Nigerian government. It's not as if people are inherently corrupt, but the system, conspires against them sometimes in cases, So that's just something I wanted to point out, because Tony, he might mean well, and an NPC might actually mean well, but we know that the Nigerian politicians, especially the political class that we have right now, they purposely frustrate these institutions and prevent them from being able to actually carry out a moral process of that's just what I wanted to say.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Your point was that, yes, there is no institution that is inherently bad. You would find good people in every institution. But when the processes are not foolproof, then you could begin to have compromises. For instance, you're deploying PDAs. If those people you're going to be giving those PDAs find a way to breach the PDA, they will breach it. You're deploying servers. If the people in the server room find that they can turn off the server momentarily for an hour or two, they will breach it. You're going to be deploying. So the systems and the processes, and I'm not claiming that I know much about these systems and processes, but it's just the lack of awareness that I'm now introspecting. Can we even critique that lack of awareness? Not just awareness that there will be a census exercise. In fact, as we speak, many Nigerians don't know that there will be a census exercise. And many Nigerians don't even know why they should be counted. So leave that aside to talk about the systems and the processes that will aid us in this counting. That there's just opaqueness as to how those systems are supposed to function and whether or not what to expect from those systems, and then to be sure that those systems have the capacities and the capabilities as claimed by the institutions promoting those systems. So that's that. You asked how can people like us be supported? Well, I believe I've been doing this work by the mercies of God for, I believe, 8 or 7 years now, 2014. And promotion is a gradual process. I don't expect that I will start out with my small village in my small room and all of a sudden I command the attention of the whole world or command the attention of the whole nation. So you start small, and that's what I'm doing. So if I speak, no matter the quality of English I speak and no matter the amount of research that went into my presentations, you can only be limited by the number of people who are able to hear you per time. And so some of the work we did, not just with the elections, before then, there is a history of track record of data-backed analysis and especially public policy analysis. But I'm happy at the limited success that we're getting now. And we've not gotten to a stage where we're able to impact nationally, but maybe perhaps with the support of Nigerians, we can get there. And people who do this kind of work, of course, face risks and then also face challenges, some of which could be offset by individuals if they want to. So let me leave it at that. Chika, you have the floor. So, okay, thank you so much for pointing that out. And I believe that my answer was technical, but I hope that those who have inner ears have heard what I said. Chika, please take the mic.
Hello. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, my brother. Good evening.
Yeah, I've actually listened to a whole lot of speakers, and to be frank, all of them are actually making a whole lot of sense. But you see, it's one thing in common with virtually all what all speakers are saying is when you're talking about national population, it has a link with what our political stakeholders are doing. If the institutions are not strong enough, trust me, we'll keep on having so many errors. Secondly, you cannot be talking about doing a census population. To tell you the truth, is even an expensive venture to do. So you have to look at so many other variables that will even affect the data, the quality of data you are hoping to get from the population exercise. Once there's several variables that is even going to affect this exercise, and previous history have actually given us insights. That's why some states will even reject that. Some will even inflate whatever population. Some will even bring out their goat and cow. I had a whole lot of stories even in 2006 population where people are even counting their goat and chicken as part of the population. So you see, the level of education, the level of poverty, the insecurity, and a whole lot of variables is coming into play. That is why if we really want to get the institutions right, we must get the leaders right. It's only when you have the right leaders that will even have the mind to strengthen the institutions. Because the reason why we're saying that this population will be a very good asset is because the political stakeholders have not have interest. Once there's a benefit that the political stakeholders will benefit, trust me, they will always want to come back to a mess up the system. And these people don't care. That's why Nigeria, every institution in Nigeria is instead of okay, we're talking about INEC. We're talking about INEC. If we have the right leaders that will always listen, that will always want to listen to critics, always want to improve the electoral processes, do you think that INEC will keep on making the same mistake they made since 1993? Trust me, I don't want to be kind of very, very negative about this whole population insight, but with all what we are saying, it looks as if it still comes back to the institutions, and the institution comes back to leaders. If we don't have the right leaders that will help to push up this system, so that it will open for accountability, open for critics, open for everything. And we were talking about leaders. We're talking about leaders that people have compassion, that are willing to learn. If you put somebody that doesn't even know what to do with that, and you expect him to even be interested in population census. Even in some developed world, some of them don't really engage in this census exercise. They even use other methods like other sampling method to even get their data because it's a very expensive venture. And last time I checked, Nigeria is not that buoyant enough to talk about we are doing want to conduct a thorough census exercise because we need the data. Because at the end of the day, the data will lie following somebody's office without even making use of it. So this is my own little contribution that I just want to make, that if we want to seek it right, we must go back to the institutions. And going back to the institutions, we must look at the leaders. These current political stakeholders, their level of education and lack of interest about this will even make a whole mess of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Chika, and also thank you to your kids who are also co-contributors. So you did not contribute alone to the program, you were contributing, and your kids were also contributing. We enjoyed all part of the contributions. So thank you. And that will be the last that we'll take. But before I close, I will invite Tony to make closing remarks, and then I will now make my closing remarks and acknowledge people who've been here. So, Tony, could you take 30 seconds to 45 seconds to make closing remarks?
Thank you very much, everybody. Like I said before, all videos are really welcome, and we at NBC, we are not an island of so every stakeholder is important. 2023 census, you count and count what you want to be counting. And also, I want to give full assurance that everything about this census 2023 is we are not working manually for 2023 population analysis census. It is totally digitalized. From the moment an household has been generated, every information about the household is going directly to the server. So we are very, very sure of getting quality information from each household. And we are also letting people, stakeholders know that every generator that is coming to an household to generate has signed an oath of secrecy in front of federal judge, and every information passed out to an generator not linked to any other third party. That's one of those things that I think that's it. And also, we are pleading with Nigerians, please help us educate people in your community. Help us educate people in your vicinity. Let them know that population analysis census was due to come up between 28th of March to 2nd of April. But the period of election has also shifted the training of enumerators and supervisors for now. So a new timetable has been set, and a new announcement will be made from the Office of the Director General Service. So it's we would have been done to join us as we work hand in hand, because every data and information that we gotten from each household supports economic development in every way, from allocation of resources to anything you can name. And I would gladly appreciate our Mr. Chairman for this wonderful space. And you can also look forward to more spaces like this that will come up. If I myself can lie to I've joined answer some questions. And like I said earlier, Mr. Chairman, I am just the only staff of National Population Commission that is as students. I'm not the only staff here. There are other staffs, and they are also putting down so many things that people have said so far. So moving on, it will be conducted, it will be done. Everybody is important. You count, so please, you will be counted. You will be counted. Thank you very much. Mr. Chima, it's very, very nice to be here with you, and also hear people's opinion. And please, anytime, I'm just DM away.
That's all right. That's all right. Thank you. Thank you so very much, my dear brother. Let me read out the comments. AK Faustina says Nigeria needs a database for its citizens. NPC should do all that is within their powers to get this right. Once we also get an unbiased data of the population, we'll be able to start working towards how electioneering processes also work. Mr. Chris, you've said everything I wanted to say. All systems need to be integrated together. Without that, there will be continuous biased data analysis. Exactly, says Eke again. Birth and death records should be recorded from the day a child is born till the day the person dies. Census is not something they need to rush. They actually need to also take the counts bit by bit. Immediately a child is born, an ID should be attached to the child. I'm interested in how you got this information, Tony of Lagos. Okay. I believe that you've gotten that. Then please conclude the introduction so that some of us can say one or two things about the national census. That has been done. There are screening and political appointees already nominating candidates, Ubiora and Nabog. They are screening and political appointees, that's commissioners, are already nominating candidates. Please keep doing spaces. Chima Christian, okay. I agree with Mr. Daniel. Why are we doing manual census? Why not use a platform like NIN, whether to be updated to suit the purpose? That's why the youth should strike heavily. Then, to be honest with you guys, NNPC does not have the accurate numbers of people in Nigeria. Meanwhile, government need to invest more in the right direction in this agency. NPC need to have working offices across the 74. Okay, that question has been answered, I believe. Okay, so thank you so very much for your time. One more person before we draw a curtain from here, and then I'll come back and do the closing statement. God's will. I think I saw you on the speaker list before. You left and you came back again. Could you take 30 seconds to make your contributions, because we are about to close the space. 30 seconds, God's will.
Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't on the speaker section. I just request now in 30 seconds will not be enough for me to say what I want to say. Thank you. So if you can give me like 2-3 minutes, I'll appreciate. But if not, then I'll have to drop. Thank you.
Okay, we give you 2 to 3 minutes. We give you 2 to 3 minutes. Make your points.
All right. Thank you very much. Fatima.
Yes.
I first saw your video on Battling Space, okay? When you're talking about the disasters that will help us to get rid of the shenanigans. I just did that recently. So that was why when I saw your space, I hopped in thinking I was going to get things in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I am very surprised that you were talking about census at the time. First of all, Ms. Ashima, you live in Nigeria, please.
Yes, I live in Nigeria.
Hello, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I live in Nigeria.
Are you in Nigeria?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Tony, please. Mr. Tony, do you live in Nigeria? Is it that, please? Do you live in Nigeria,
these questions are personal, so if he chooses not to answer, I won't begrudge him. So, yes, but you can go ahead and make
thank
your
you
point.
very much. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I'm asking you this because you live in Nigeria right now. You would know that Nigerians are suffering. You will know that Nigerians at this time, they can't even access their money. Some Nigerians have made couple of them for days they've not been able to eat because they've been not able to access their money. As I speak to you, Nigerians have been disturbing me this morning as if I am immediately that they're Naira. These are what we're going through. And right now we just have a very critical election, and we are hearing that INEC is depriving those whom court have given access to go and access to visas of this very important election. And this is the situation we are in right now. And you are coming to talk to tell us about census. How would you want to censor people that can't gain access to their money? How do you want to censor people who doesn't even know where the next meal is coming from, even after working so hard to make money? Do you know what I call this? This is indeed misplaced priority. I have been disturbed this morning by Nigerians as no way I'm a civil servant or anything. Because I run a little business where I think I have opportunity in Naira, maybe 1,000 Naira there about daily. I speak with you right now, even as a business person, I don't have Naira myself. I am suffering as a Nigerian. And you are coming to tell us about census. Instead of talking about what is on ground, Nigeria is in right now. We are talking about to help ourselves, and you are coming here to tell us about census. You know, I am highly disappointed in you. After doing a video of 34 minutes, making us think you have an interest at us, and you're calling to hold this nonsense like this.
Thank you so very much for that. I believe Nigerians are passionate about things around, and just to make it clear, I have accepted an invitation from the violence space to speak about the elections tomorrow. Before I attend the violence space tomorrow to speak about the elections, what happened, how did it happen, and what are the next moves, I have also accepted invitation from, there's a group, I'll get their name from my DM. I think he says the name is, but there are two groups of people I'll be granting interviews to tomorrow concerning the elections. So that I am discussing the census that is coming up in 19 days does not mean that I'm not interested in the elections. I've done quite enormous work at the risk of my life. Since I made that video about the census, my kids have not gone to school. These are sacrifices we are making. You can't believe the amount of resources, personal resources I've spent trying to. This is, well, I understand that you're passionate about these things. So that I'm discussing census. The census, whether we discuss it or not, if we allow them to go on with their plans, the census will happen on the day they say it will happen. And what I'm calling attention to is to see if I can use my limited platform to beg Nigerians to ask these people to stop this census and postpone it by 9 months. I don't know at what point you joined, but that was my goal. My goal of discussing this is to beg Nigerians to ask these people, delay this census by at least 9 months. In the 9 months, allow a new government to be formed. And when a new government is formed, let us critique all the systems and the processes that will be deployed into this census. We have given you 177 billion naira. You say you have systems, you have processes. You say you are recruiting 707,000 people. We want to understand what the systems and processes are so that we don't walk from one major disappointment to another major disappointment. That is the policy plank and the policy thrust of this conversation. So if you joined us halfway and you did not get the substance of this, and then because of that you are agitated, I understand people are agitated. And believe me, I am doubly so. And that is why I damned every consequence of standing up to the Nigerian state to do the video I did and to continue to provide ongoing support, data-backed support to people who are, there are things I cannot say to you on the public space, but I'm working so hard in that regard, and I'm doing this sacrificially, and it costs a lot to do these things, and it's painful that my kids who didn't ask to be my kids are being thrown into a mess because I did a video. They are no longer going to school. They are asking me why we're not going to school. No coherent answers. So I understand what you say, that you're passionate about these things and you're angry. But please, we will direct our anger properly. All these energies of young people will not be misdirected. Please, we will direct it to where we will get it to good use. God's will, your hand is still up. Let me give you another 30 seconds to conclude before we wrap up the evening. Yes, God's will, please go ahead.
All right. You said your mom. You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I said Tony has ran away from the state. What you just talked about now is what it is, then I am really sorry I attacked you that way, okay? I didn't join the state from the beginning. Well, the part I joined after hearing about census, and I was highly disappointed because right now Nigerians are going through a lot. We are owing 7 trillion naira already. No idea here. How this Johnny we took their leaders are going to pay this debt. And still these guys are still using borrowed money to anything to the country. But we're not like we have BVN, we have NIN, we have national passport, we have international passport, we have private like we have so many things to help this country. We have leaders who know what they are doing, to know the population of this nation, but no, they keep bringing things so that they can steal and continue to steal from us. So seriously, when I heard this, and I saw you in, I was really pissed, especially with the discussions I've been getting from my sons this morning, and even me, I'm going to exactly what they're going to, and they kept on calling me, think I could offer their help. So seriously, my goodness.
That's not a problem.
I was really pissed. But the basic explanation you just gave is what it is. That for you, I am sorry.
Yes,
for Tony, I am not sorry because he knows exactly what he's doing. That's why he ran away. And if
That's not
Thank you
a
very much for the
thank
opportunity.
you. If you want to
Thank you.
understand
So,
about the elections, by the mercies of God, I have accepted violence space invitation through Mrs. Kai. There's somebody that sends, and but I've confirmed that, and I think we booked it for 9 p.m. Nigerian time, and then I will be speaking to another group 7 p.m. Nigerian time. So the whole of tomorrow evening will be dedicated to interrogating what happened and how we can attempt to recover the stolen mandate, because I believe that the mandates were stolen. So please join us again tomorrow on the violence space, not on my platform. I will be speaking there. I will not be hosting, because they have sent me this invitation and I accepted, and then I cannot host on my platform since I've accepted invitation on another platform. So I'll be on Violence Space tomorrow by the mercies of God. And thank you for your passion about Nigeria. It is people like you that Nigeria needs, and especially when this energy is directed towards making meaningful progress. And there are other speakers who wanted to speak. I'm feeling that the space is taking too long, but I see people who are angling to speak, and I don't want to deny any Nigerian opportunity to ventilate. So, Chika, you've spoken before, right?
Yes.
So
I
instead
just
of
want
the,
to.
okay, please take just a few minutes. Please.
All right. Just to portray what God's will has actually been, has actually said. Understand her emotions and her passions. Trust me, when I tune into this, I have these similar things in mind. That is why I try to keep calm. Okay.
Yes.
But since we have some violence meetings tomorrow, can you just add me up, because I think I have some other personal discovery I did on my own concerning how to reclaim this stolen mandate, because I can't express how painful I am. You know, it's not everybody have this way of expressing. You know, in terms of being against. Trust me, the mood of the country is nothing to write home about, and is something nobody can even embassy of speaking about. So I understand her anger, I understand her passion, and trust me, I feel the same way. But we don't have to dwell on a particular issue. We just have to move forward and still formulate other plans to reclaim the stolen mandate. Please, if you can add me up in that balance, please. I think I have my own little discovery I did. You know,
what's your could you send a DM and then I can take it off, and then I can send it to the organizers of the space. It's not my space, like you would know. It's owned by
I sent a DM 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh, my DM is quite messy now, and I have a lot of. But could you send just send something that can make it look, more recent, so that I can get to it in good time.
All right. I will do that. Okay. So, Gospel, please, I understand your anger. Trust me, even me, I'm so much.
And God's will, please. Can you send also a DM? God's will. I would love to speak further with you. Right. God's will. Also send a DM if you can hear me. And then I think we'll have to. Oh my God, what's Guinea Suleiman? 2 minutes.
Okay, I really don't have much to say. Good evening, everyone. I was just going to say the same thing God's will said, but not the way she said it. I know she's passionate about this thing. I dropped a DM for you, Kima. And
today?
I had asked her, yes, I told you I was going to have a chat with you, and we were like, okay, I should go ahead. I dropped some questions, and I hope to get responses. I'd also like to join the violence space.
So follow their handles. Follow their handles. I think maybe you know what will happen.
So for people wanting to join the violence space, just follow Emia Saka.
Okay.
I'm going to share the link. I'll try and post something on the comment section now for everyone.
Okay. Thank you so much, my brother.
That being said, I'd still like to contribute to this
conversation. Okay, please go ahead.
I just see it as something that's not necessary at this time. I feel it's coming at a time where the whole country is in disarray. For example, what happened, the train accident, and I just saw one this evening.
Yes.
Something falling on top of something, and lives were lost. Like, this is not even the time. And if there's any thing that can be done to push it off, just push it away for now. When Nigerians are not even organized to do this, they are mentally not ready. And at the same time, we are fighting for something and we're not even hearing anything from anybody. As this census is coming at a time, I feel like I'm not even safe because you're in the north and you're always wondering who is walking in your street, who walks into your street, who comes into your street. And for every little gunshot you hear, you're scared. So like this census, people around me are already saying it could be done for reasons that they feel they want to do, but they feel that their security is impaired. So at this point, I think this census is not what we need. If there's a way it can be put away, pushed off, or whatever, I think it would be best for us, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ginika, and thank you so much for every other person who contributed. Let me add this. As citizens, we have agency. By that, I mean we have power to influence. It is not always that we will get what we want, but politics, especially for democracy, operates a demand and supply kind of thing. If you don't demand something, it's usually not supplied. If Nigerians carry on like this, believe me, the census will happen. If we take this same energy to go and talk to our people on the radio, talk to our people in the streets, tweet about it. Those who know people can call, those who can write will write, those who can make videos will make videos, those who are on TikTok will do, those who can even share will share. For instance, this video that we're discussing, some of it is it's streaming live on my Facebook account, same name, Chima Christian. People are complaining that some of the videos are too lengthy, but I usually don't have the time to start cutting them into pieces. So if somebody can download these and cut them into pieces that can fit into TikTok or anywhere, perfect, please feel free to. So my point is, Nigerians, I believe we can stop NPC. Not stopping NPC. Stopping NPC is not the goal, but at least getting them to understand the mood of the nation, to also protect the staff they will be deploying. Because if this kind of person, for instance, with the kind of anger and emotions that girls will have, as somebody she is sitting around the issues, no money, no petrol, no nothing, and somebody knocks on her door, excuse me, I want to count you, I'm from the NPC. I mean, you would imagine how that discussion will end. So that's why we have to use our agency. That's the goal of this conversation, really, to stop them, to postpone or to influence them or to, convince them to postpone this in national interest. Delay this by 9 months, delay this by 8 months, but not now. Let the election litigation take its full course. Let the mood of the, Nigeria can easily, from one major disappointment to another major disappointment, they should take it easy on Nigerians. That is the essence. And so if you're here and you can tweet, if you can retweet, if you can tag NPC, then talk about the radio stations, the TV stations that you listen to. Tag them, tell them why they should stop, make your argument, the same argument you're making to me, if you know these people. So anything you can do to stop this thing or to at least postpone it, do something. But if we don't do anything, believe me, you wake up on the 19th or is it 29th and find people in front of your door counting. And maybe the counting may or not, but if we act on it, I believe that there is a chance that we can achieve something substantial. Having said that, it's my conclusion by appreciating the wonderful community, especially the Facebook community, the Twitter community. Some people are saying that I'm partial to the Instagram community, but maybe I've not been posting on my Instagram, but maybe I don't know. I should get a hang of Instagram, how it works, and start giving them contents there. But let me appreciate everyone who was here, and then the nice comments. I see a lot of beautiful comments on my Facebook. I've not had time to go through some of the comments on Twitter, but I hope some of them are as beautiful as those on the Facebook. I appreciate Spotlight, Godswill, JC, Ochika, Okeke, everybody who participated. Ginika, Chris participated earlier. I can't see him on the platform now. And then on Facebook, Oge, Ladidi, Caroline, Prince, Christian, Wenyi, Mobong, Okong. The names are quite enormous. Vivian, Linus, and others. Please, you are appreciated. I'll be doing a violence space tomorrow, I think by 9 p.m. And then before that, I'll be doing something by 7 p.m. still on the elections. So if you're interested, please hop in and then let's discuss, especially on doing the next possible steps. And the essence of these discussions is not to talk. It is to inspire action. So this evening, one of the key takeaways is that if all of us here can commit to spending a fraction of our time in trying to dissuade NPC from doing this. Wonderful. Then for tomorrow, I have my key objectives tomorrow. Then maybe by tomorrow, if God gives us the grace, we will do something around that elections tomorrow. So thank you so much for your time. And then I hope to be doing more of Twitter Spaces and Facebook Live in the coming days and weeks. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Bye, guys.